The healer's quarters smelled like cold stone and dying candle wax, and Joran Ashvale knelt beside his mother's bed as her breathing slowed to almost nothing. For 20 years, this room had been the only place in Halveth Estate that didn't feel like a cage. His mother had served as house healer, quiet, careful, never raising her voice even when the lords above her raised theirs. Joran had grown up in her shadow, mopping floors, carrying tonics, learning to read a room before he learned to read a book. Unmarked, the scans always said, no bloodline, no rank, worth nothing to a house that measured people the way it measured horses. Joran, she whispered now. Her hand found his, thinner than even a week ago. In her palm was a locket, cracked silver, dull with age, no crest, no visible mark. Don't let them take this. Promise me. I promise. His voice didn't shake. 20 years of practice had seen to that. 30 seconds later, she was gone. The door opened before he'd even closed her eyes. Lord Halveth stood in the frame, golden bloodline mark glowing on his collar, flanked by his two sons. Caius and Ren, both marked, both ranked, both already smirking like this, was entertainment scheduled for their evening. She's finally done dying, Halveth said. Took her long enough. Healers are supposed to keep people alive. Funny she couldn't manage it for herself. Joran said nothing. He never did. 20 years had taught him silence cost less than a reaction. Halveth stepped further into the room. Nose wrinkling like the smell of death offended him personally, and produced a single rolled sheet of parchment. His mother's will, filed with the estate steward years ago, written in her careful healer's hand. Since you're both here, Halveth said to his sons, unrolling it with theatrical slowness, let's see what 20 years of service bought her. He read aloud, savoring every word. To my son, Joran, I leave a pause just long enough to make sure everyone was watching. One locket. Caius laughed first, a short, ugly bark. Then Ren. Then the two guards at the door who clearly understood which way the wind was blowing. One locket, Halveth repeated, turning the parchment so Joran could see his mother's signature, as if that made the joke better. For 20 years I housed her, fed her bastard son alongside my own. Let him eat at the same table, granted the far end of it, and this is what she leaves the unmarked boy. A worthless trinket, no crest, no mark, probably not even real silver. He tossed the parchment onto the bed, beside the body that hadn't even gone cold. He's of age now, Halveth went on, already turning to leave, already bored. Get him off my land before sundown. Take nothing else. The boys owed nothing, and frankly, the locket's not worth the argument it'd cause if he tried to claim more. The guards didn't even bother to search him on the way out. They didn't think there was anything worth finding. That was the first mistake. System, bloodline sigil scan. Subject, Joran Ashvale. Result, unmarked. No registered house signature. The scan light passed over him at the gate, the way it had passed over him every year since he was 6, and confirmed what the entire estate already believed, that he was nothing, no bloodline, no mana signature, not even worth a rank designation, just unmarked, the word the Halveth house used the way other houses used stray dog. The gate slammed behind him. Snow had started to fall, thin and gray, settling on his shoulders as he stood in the road, with nothing but a cracked locket and the clothes on his back. He turned and walked along the outside of the estate wall toward the old stables. The ones at the edge of the property, condemned 3 winters ago, where the family kept beasts too injured, too old, or too useless to be worth feeding. As a boy, Joran used to slip out here with scraps of bread when no one was watching, the only place on this estate that had ever felt like his, because nobody else had ever wanted it. The side door was still loose on its hinges. Same as always, he pushed through. Inside in the last stall, something was dying. A wardrake, old, scarred, one wing torn nearly in half. Ribs showing through scaled hide gone gray with neglect. A culling tag hung from one horn, ink barely legible, disposed by morning. Joran remembered this drake, vaguely, from when he was small. The Halveth house's prize war mount once, before age and a battlefield injury made it cheaper to replace than heal. Now it waited for a knife it was too tired to fight. Joran sat down across from it in the cold straw. The drake's eye, one of the only parts of it that still moved, tracked him without much interest. None of the people who'd come through this stable had ever brought good news. She gave me this, Joran said quietly, more to himself than to the drake, turning the cracked locket over in his palm. It was warm, warmer than it had any right to be, warmer than his own cold fingers. And he said it wasn't worth the argument. Just like you're not worth the argument. Just like I never was. The drake's eye closed. The locket cracked open. Not with a click, with a sound like a held breath finally let go. Light poured out of it, gold-white, filling the ruined stable from the broken floorboards to the gaps in the collapsed roof. System. Seal broken. Trigger condition met. Grief-bound activation. System. Identifying dormant bloodline. Sovereign's Veil. Confirmed system. Class assigned. Beast Severian. Ability unlocked. Communion. The light didn't touch Jorn at all. It went straight to the Drake. The dying creature's eyes snapped open. And where its scarred hide had been gray and flaking, gold lines crawled across it like cracks filling with light instead of breaking apart. Its torn wing knit shut, muscle and membrane reweaving in seconds, its ribs filled with new mass, faster than any healing magic Yoren had seen his mother perform in 20 years. System. Communion bond established. Drake, formerly. Disposal tag system. Bond evolution triggered. Tier 1, Tier 2 system. New designation, Wardrake, awakened. The Drake, already twice the size it had been a minute ago, scars gone. Scales now a deep burnished gold, pushed itself up onto legs that hadn't held its weight in years. It lowered its head to Joran's level and let out a low sound that wasn't quite a roar. Almost a question. I don't know either, Joran admitted, staring at something that, an hour ago, had been minutes from a culling blade. He looked down at the locket, still glowing, the cracked silver smoothing out, reshaping into something with edges with detail. A crest formed across its face, a crowned beast, wings spread, and beneath it, in old script he didn't recognize, Ashvale. System. Communion strengthens through underestimation. Bond power scales with the gap between perceived worth and actual potential. Current multiplier times 40s. Subject was assessed at 0. Joran read the line twice, gold light reflecting in his eyes. 40 times, he murmured, scratching along the Drake's jaw. The beast leaned into the touch like it had been waiting in 20 years for someone to do exactly that. They scanned me as 0, every year, since I was 6. So whatever happens now, they're the ones who set the multiplier. System. Trial notification. Annual Bloodline. Trial begins at sundown. All registered house members and dependents must present a bond or sigil for ranking. Attendance. Mandatory for all residents of Halveth Estate, including the recently departed. Joran looked toward the estate gates, lit gold against the gray snow beyond the stable's broken slats. Mandatory, he repeated, and something not quite a smile crossed his face for the first time in years. Guess I'm still a resident until sundown. Might as well attend. The Drake's wings unfurled, slowly, testing the new size of them, casting a shadow across the stable that hadn't been big enough to hold something. Like this in 20 years. System communion deepens. Bond may evolve again under sufficient threat. Current tier. 2 threshold for tier 3. Significant. Then let's find some provocation, Joran said quietly and stood. The trial hall was packed by the time Joran walked back through the gates. Every marked son and daughter of the estate, plus ranked households from 3 neighboring properties, gathered around the central dais for the annual ceremony. Bonded beasts stood beside their handlers. Hawks on gloved wrists, hounds at heel, and at the front, Caius's prized warhorse in ceremonial barding, the centerpiece of the display. Lord Halveth sat at the head table, goblet in hand, already half bored with his own ceremony. The way he was bored with everything that didn't involve reminding someone of their place. Then the doors at the far end of the hall blew inward, not from a gust of wind, but from the sheer size of what was walking through them. The Wardrake had to duck its head and fold its wings tight, just to fit through the frame, its shoulders brushing both sides of the doorway. Gold scales caught every torch and threw the light back doubled, tripled, until the whole room seemed to glow. Behind it, walking calm and unhurried in his plain gray traveling cloak, came Yoren, the unmarked boy, the bastard, the one they'd thrown out of these gates 2 hours earlier with nothing but a worthless locket. The hall went dead silent. Somewhere near the back, a hawk shrieked and tried to bolt off its handler's wrist. You. Halveth started, half rising, goblet forgotten. That's the Kultag Drake, scheduled for disposal this morning. System. Bond detected. Scanning. The scanning light. The same light that had branded Joran unmarked at the gate 2 hours ago, swept over him, and the Drake together. Instead of the flat gray it had shown his entire life. It turned gold, then white, then a color none of the assembled judges had a name for, washing across the hall and forcing half the room to shield their eyes. System Bond Class, Beast Sovereign Communion. Bond Tier, 2, Awakened. Evolution Active System. Bloodline Sigil Match Found System. Cross-referencing Locket Crest. Match confirmed. House Ashville System. House Ashvale, status, extinct royal line, dissolved 200 years ago, last confirmed bloodline carrier, unknown, system, rank assigned, above registry. No current house ranks above this designation. Caius's warhorse. Minutes ago, the proudest bond in the room, shrank against the wall, ears flat, refusing to look at the drake. Ren's hawk dug its talons into his shoulder, hard enough to draw blood and wouldn't move. Every bonded beast in the hall from 3 estates had gone still and low. The posture of something small, recognizing something it had no business standing near. A judge near the dais, an older man in scholar's robes, stared up at the gold projection of the crest turning slowly above Joran's head. Ashvale, he said, half to himself. The royal line. The one that vanished after the war. The line everyone assumed had died out completely. Understanding crossed his face slowly, then, all at once, the way ice cracks across a lake. The historical record says, the last confirmed Ashvale was a court healer who disappeared from public record roughly 20 years ago. A healer never officially registered anywhere again. He looked toward the healer's quarters, 2 buildings away, where a body still lay on a narrow bed. She wasn't a disgraced servant who married beneath her station, he said quietly. She was hiding. Lord Halveth's chair scraped back. He was on his feet now, face draining of color, the goblet slipping from his fingers and shattering on the stone. That's impossible. She was a servant. She mended sheets and mixed tonics. She was nothing. She was unmarked too, Joran said. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. In a hall this silent, it carried to every corner, and for the first time in 20 years, every face in the room was turned toward him instead of past him. By choice. Hidden. The same scan that called me Zero called her Zero. For 20 years in your house. While you mocked her at dinner for being a servant who got lucky enough to be kept on, he let that settle over the hall like the gold light still hanging in the air. The locket wasn't worthless. It was the last seal of a royal bloodline, sleeping until the one person wearing it had nothing left to lose. System. Above registry rank takes immediate precedence in all estate matters. Current estate head, Lord Halveth, ranked below new designation. System. Estate ownership reverts to highest-ranked Ashvale-affiliated bloodline present. New estate authority, Joran Ashvale. The hall turned as one, toward Lord Halveth. He didn't move at first. His jaw worked like he was searching for an objection, a technicality, the way he'd searched for one his entire life and never once needed to find it, because no one had ever outranked him before. There was nothing this time. Every bonded beast in the room had folded itself low, in deference to the gold drake at Joran's shoulder, and the system didn't negotiate. Slowly, Lord Halveth's knees bent. Caius and Ren followed half a second later, Ren wincing as his hawk dug in. Deeper, Caius's warhorse pressing flat to the floor, ceremonial barding scraping stone. 3 generations of Halveth pride, kneeling in the same hall where 2 hours ago they had laughed at a will that left a man 1 locket. 20 years, Halveth said, voice cracking. Kneeling in the hall he had ruled his entire life. 20 years I called you unmarked. I called your mother nothing, a servant, a name I never bothered to learn the history of. And 2 hours ago I held a locket in my own hands and told my sons it wasn't worth the argument. It wasn't an argument, Joran said. It was the only thing she had left, and she gave it to me anyway, knowing exactly what you'd say about it. He looked around the hall, at the kneeling lord, the kneeling heirs, the cowed bonds pressed flat across the floor, the judges still staring up at a crest extinct for 200 years that had just walked back through their gates, wearing a healer's worn satchel and a plain gray cloak. You scanned me my whole life and got the same answer every time, Joran said quietly. 0. You were never wrong about the number. He scratched along the war drake's jaw, and the great beast rumbled low and warm, settling beside him like it had always belonged there. You were just wrong about what 0 meant. He turned toward the doors, and the war drake turned with him, wings folding but not lowering, still towering, still gold. Nothing at all like the dying creature in a condemned stable 2 hours ago. The estate's mine now, Joran said, not unkindly, just stating the new shape of things, the way the system already had. I'd like everyone to stand. Nobody kneels in this house anymore, not even to me. Behind him the sun finished setting, and for the first time in 200 years, the Ashvale crest burned bright and gold over Halveth Estate, exactly where it had always belonged, where it had been waiting, quietly, for 20 patient years.